They're so much more efficient online.
Yeah, Sandy saw us and said, wow, it's right behind our house.
All right, we're live.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and welcome everyone. April 4th, 2023 to Littleton Conservation Commission. And we're going to start off, this is our first in-person in quite a few years. So we're excited to be back. We have on our proposed agenda the approval of minutes. We're going to postpone that until the next meeting, which is April 18th, and we'll go through two sets at that point. Does anyone have any administrative discussions that they would like to add to this list prior to going forward?
I would like to add a brief discussion about adding some gravel to the Oak Hill access way off of Harvard Road.
Okay. Okay, let's go ahead and start on our list. Open space and recreation plan survey questions.
I was actually hoping that we'd get some even sample draft kind of questions that the consultant would be using for you to react to and see if there's any other questions you would want them to ask of the public. But we don't have that. So I don't know if there's any, if when it comes in, if you want to take a look at it, if you have burning questions you would want to ask.
What's the expected turnaround time? Like, when is the survey going to go live?
Yeah, like right now, it's going to be a
Fast.
nanosecond weekend, I think. When's our next meeting?
The
In
20...
something, so
April 18th.
there's a chance I might not see it before
Oh,
then.
not the ConCom, the open space. Oh, wait.
The open space.
Sorry, open space.
Yeah. Actually, no, because I think we meet one more time before open space does,
Oh, perfect.
I think. In which case, then it will be very fast. I will get something to you as soon as I can. Or if you do have any burning questions you want to ask besides, why do you use open space, why don't you, what are the barriers to using it, those kind of.
They'll probably keep some that were used prior, weren't they? Because you have established baseline questions.
Yeah, I think it's not boilerplate, but there's certainly enough examples from OSRPs
Okay.
around and the old ones, so.
Okay, cool.
Just something to think about.
Okay. Tree policy discussion?
Do you want to push that off to the end in case,
I was
Matt?
just saying, you know, if Matt was going to come. When you said you had spoken to him, I didn't follow up again. But he did say he was occupied until at least 8:30 when I spoke to him.
Okay. So we'll
But
come,
he,
So we'll see.
we'll come back to
in
it.
general, they've started. Shade Tree already has something in the works,
Yep.
so he was willing to come in and
Okay.
discuss what they have and see if we have any input.
Perfect. Well, we can even add that afterwards. Chapter 91 review. Thank you, Amy, for sending out the sample of the application and language that goes with that as well.
And if anybody tried to click on the link, you'll notice it is the wrong link. So if you want it, I will get you the right one. I think,
I'd like to see that.
yeah. I think you were probably, I think you're the only person who wasn't able to make it because you're doing the MACC thing.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
The application is thorough, for sure. There's some interesting points in there. Okay. Webster update and engineering planning costs.
We are moving ahead with trying to get some baseline information for Webster. The trust has agreed to pay for the appraisal up to $6,000, so I'm trying to get some quotes on that. One's come in, but the other two haven't responded yet. They are gonna, the appraiser is gonna need some sort of plan to react to. And Lyle has one that shows, I think, 10 lots on it, which I think is gonna be very difficult with the amount of wetlands out there.
Are there any wetlands on that flag or on that preliminary plan?
GIS wetlands. And in this case, GIS really underestimated the wetlands.
Okay.
So I am trying to find an engineer who can do an extremely conceptual plan based on the wetlands that I'm gonna start doing.
How important is it for the appraiser to have a site layout versus just a number of buildable lots?
I think he just need, well, they will add in costs, like if it's a huge, really long subdivision road with 2 bridges, they will factor that in. They don't need to know the actual layout.
But the access is going to be, I mean, it's going to be a cluster development. The access is going to be relatively unchanged.
Still gonna have to do crossing though.
I guess that's my
Potentially
point.
2 or 3 crossings.
It doesn't substantively matter whether there's 8 lots or 10 lots in terms of the access.
No, but, well, the access is problematic, A, because of the wetlands. And no, the appraiser mostly needs to know, is the highest and best use 10 lots, is the highest and best use 5 lots? So with Browns and with Williams, we were a lot closer on what we thought might be there.
Okay.
So anyway, so I've been bugging some engineers about what they can do, and I think I found someone down at Tetra Tech who probably even better doesn't work in Littleton, lives in Littleton, who might be able to get us something. So I'm just going to get a more realistic sketch of the wetlands and then see what they can do. But if Tetra Tech can't do it, I got to figure out a way to pay for this
Right.
engineering costs without having to wait for town meeting, because it's not in anybody's budget.
Mhm.
Okay.
So what I was,
What about those
Pardon?
cell tower funds? No.
because I used to be able to get to that
Right.
with no problem, and I'm not sure if I can. I still might be able to. So what I was wondering, if you're agreeable, if you could just vote to say that you would approve spending up to, say, $7,500 for this purpose, so I can at least move ahead, or you can say, nope, not gonna spend any money.
Okay. Is there any discussion on that? What are your thoughts?
Sounds like a great idea.
Second.
Okay, do you want to make a motion then?
That the commission authorize Amy to spend up to $8,000 to fund the engineering costs for the Webster property, or the
Specifically for wetlands?
for the wetlands
Well, for the conceptual site plan.
conceptual site.
Involving the wetlands. Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Thank you. I don't know what's gonna come of it, but at least I.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Do that.
Still have to vote on it.
Okay, yeah, I'm just looking to see. So, the 6,000 was already allocated,
For the appraisal,
okay,
for Ella, from the trust.
okay. So just so that we acknowledge that. Okay, so we have a first and a second. Everyone in favor of that?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
It's not a roll call, you can all do it at once.
Yes, just say yes. Okay, perfect. Amphibian Crossing Brigade.
Can we come back to that real quick? So I had been supposed to and forgot to check in with Lyle in terms of setting up a time to go take a look at the property. That said, Lyle is, the Websters are very, very open to whatever. So I'll make sure to do that and try and set up a time for Conservation Commission and others as
And
want to
it's
participate.
pretty easy to at least walk through it.
Yeah, you get a pretty solid understanding.
I may go tour the property this Thursday afternoon if anybody else is interested in tagging along.
And I'm going tomorrow morning, so.
Ah.
You're going tomorrow morning?
I'm going tomorrow morning to Flag Wetlands.
What time are you going?
I'm thinking maybe like 5:30 or 6. Would that work?
Why don't we, can we throw both those out? So if
Yeah.
someone's around tomorrow morning, where would they meet?
He's 41, between 41 and 43, I think, are the two addresses. And there's.
Right on the
pull
street
off
or in the driveway?
You can pull off the side of the road, or you can pull into Lyle's driveway, which goes up the hill, but he has a little dirt road.
Mm-hmm.
It'll take 2 or 3 cars.
What's the street? I'm sorry.
So Bulkley.
Yeah,
Bulkley.
I haven't seen the property. This is new.
So there's
I'll send around.
two options.
and
One
stuff.
is to meet Amy what time are you going to be there tomorrow?
I'm guessing 8:45, 9. But if someone wants to meet me, I'll just make sure I can
Okay.
do it.
So we have 9 a.m. and then you're going to be there Thursday.
Thursday, I'm thinking at 6 o'clock, but I'm going to confirm that with Lyle. And I'll send an email out to everybody once I have that confirmed.
Okay. Great. Question if you could.
Yeah, sure. Rob Houston, Jennifer Street. Lyle Webster's house is 33 Bulkley Road.
Thank you.
The Carolyn Webster house is right next door to the right as you're driving
Yeah.
down Bulkley Road.
Thank you.
I'll send around maps and everything too.
Are you meeting there with CPC or is it just you?
Just me.
Okay.
Okay. Do you want to maybe text or just let us know tomorrow if you're
Certainly,
definitely going to
yep.
do that?
Yeah, once I have it confirmed, I'll send an email out to everybody.
Okay. Awesome. Thank
And
you.
I'll also probably be going out again next week with a GPS to start picking up the flag, so.
Okay. Let's do a couple more of these. Amphibian crossing brigade update.
Probably pretty much done for this year. We had a great crowd out there. We had the discussion over the library a week or two ago, which were 30 or 40 people. I wasn't here this weekend, but there was some movement, and I think they're pretty much done, probably going a little bit more, but, and actually the weekend before, there's people from Providence, Rhode Island, and
Like all over.
Boston.
Wow.
It's like you get onto the Vernal Pool Association listserv and says, you know, I live in Lexington, where can you go? And someone said, oh, call Acton, call. I was like,
So people just go different places.
Yeah.
It's a network.
yeah,
It's a
and you know, I
network
keep
that
saying, you
they-
know, it's probably not a great idea to drive all this way past vernal pools running over frogs.
So this brigade is just networked that,
But Bettina, who works in Acton, and I kind of run the Acton Littleton Boxborough brigades. So we keep track of it, we send people emails about when
Yeah.
we think we're gonna go and.
very organized, huh?
Yeah.
Very. She does a great summary. Has
Yeah.
you know, what they counted, what they crossed, what they.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's like
The
this-
kill count.
Kill count, yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
this year's like 400
I had
frogs,
no idea.
35 spouted salamanders, 7 Jeffersons, which was nice. It was 6 Jefferson at Fort Pond, which we found occasionally, and 1 over on Oak Hill. And Oak Hill's a new place because someone was out there walking her dog and said, I walked down Oak Hill and there were hundreds of dead frogs.
I can't figure out where they're all, it's not a place that I would intuitively think of.
If
But-
you're driving towards your house, the vernal pools are down the hill on the left. So I imagine they're like rolling down the hill from
They are
Oak
coming
Hill.
off the hill and
Yeah.
Yeah,
going
and then
the
going
road.
across.
And the kill was horrible. I ended up going there this year
Yeah.
primarily, but,
Okay.
So are there any areas that you found that could maybe get a salamander crossing or an amphibian crossing installed? Potentially?
Potentially, but with both Fort Pond and Oak Hill, it's really steep, and by the time you get in the crossing and a way of funneling them to the crossing, you've taken up so much room that it would be tough.
Okay.
And ditto for trying to close the road.
Right, that's.
Which would,
Right.
I'm stressed out enough.
Okay.
Let 200 people know, 100 people know that today's the rainy day, I don't want to get into highway and say, can you close the road?
Okay. All right, so let's hold off with some of the other agenda items. Let's go ahead and open our 7:45. Request for determination of applicability, 96 and 90 Great Road. What do we have?
That's Rick.
Yep. Come on up, Rick.
what's that?
Or you stay where you are.
Who are you talking about, me?
Yeah, we're talking about you.
What are we talking about?
96 and 100 Great Road for vegetation management.
Oh, that, I knew there was some reason I was coming tonight.
Okay.
You just missed us?
So we've been going after mile-a-minute vine there for a dozen years or so.
Yep.
And unfortunately, the invasives have just totally filled the little valley where they're all growing. And we have to, carve our way through it just to try to find them. So we came up with a plan to hire somebody to come in and basically cut down as much of the material in there. I mean, it's all either invasives or
Yeah.
it's something that we're really worried about, and get it to a point where we can walk and see and pull. The mile minutes is an annual, so it's a matter of just getting it when you see it coming up and not letting it go to seed.
Yeah.
And then, unfortunately, since we've been working there, there's this porcelain vine that has started in one area of that, and it's been impossible to go after it. We just couldn't even reach the roots and to try to pull it up. So, dealing with those two as the primary villains, although there's lots of multiflora rose and other non-native species in there too. So if we can get somebody from, Carl Rivenberg was going to go in there with a machine and try to cut everything down low so we can at least deal with the stuff as it's coming up.
And this was a SISMA grant, is going to pay for it.
Okay.
Right.
And I must admit, I was a little on the fence about whether this needed a filing or not, but I figured it should be err on the side of caution. It's very close to the wetlands.
This is right next to the 100 River. That was
Yes.
voluntary. They have no
Yeah, voluntary.
issue.
Yep.
And there's a stream that's basically running very, very close through it. But I think we can stay away from it with the equipment. The equipment's fairly small, track run, so it's.
And I flagged the wetland, so he will see where it is. I think when he first comes in off the parking lot is probably the closest to the wetland, and then he can get closer to the stone wall, where the hoop greenhouse is.
What are your thoughts for request for determination?
And I will say, I did also put in here, I helped Rick pull this together, is the potential for future work, which you can take or not take, which would potentially include herbicides. You did have a estimate from Land Stewardship, Inc. to do it, but figured it was probably better to get out there and do this mechanical trill first and really have an idea
For sure.
of what we're doing. So I don't know if you wanted to potentially approve that as part of this RDA, obviously you need to come back and talk to you if it's had, or just leave it out for now.
My 2 cents on that is I'd rather know what herbicides we're talking about, like, rather than just a blanket approval. I don't conceptually have any problem with it, but I'd like clarity on what it is before we sort of bless it. But
It would be probably a cut and paint situation with triclopyr. So it's-
With licensed operator, the proposal that they have, which is attached to the end of all this stuff, I believe, was that for the porcelain berry, it doesn't work for mile minute, but for the porcelain berry, the current thought is do the cut stem treatment in June, July, and August. So it takes a couple iterations, backpack.
And we're meeting on a regular basis, so I think it's probably best that we just wait and see how it's going after the first cut, and then see what we're gonna do for application.
The porcelain berry is a fairly young population. I've been working over at Prouty Woods for the last year and a half or so on an older population that was at the top of trees. And that has been impossible to get the roots up. And, I'm continuing on it. I won't call it impossible.
It's a
But
challenge.
it's really hard. But this is young enough, so we might be able to get in there and just get the roots up
Okay.
and then keep an eye on it.
How's that being disposed of?
What's that?
How do you dispose of it?
Probably just stack it somewhere. The roots over at Prouty, I'm gonna try to burn them in the pile there, but try to keep all these invasives on site, not take them too far away.
Make a motion that the board issue a -3 determination for proposal at 96 and 100 Great Road.
Do we have a second?
second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And that is without the application of herbicides.
Correct. Yep.
Thank you very much.
And remember how to do this?
Thank you.
Because I almost forgot.
Sign a papery version.
I'm just gonna send me a
I get
document.
sold out.
Michael, do you have a pen? There you go.
Can you send it to me via DocuSign?
I cannot. That's hybrid signature, so I don't do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so while we're doing that, let's go ahead.
I'll just sign this later.
Thank you.
You're not leaving the room until next time.
Okay. Where is it?
Rick, do you have a sense of when you're gonna get to that? Maybe the application had the timing on this thing.
It's actually difficult because we're dealing with one company that's doing it and finding time for them to do it. Initially, I think we've been hoping to do it when the ground was frozen, but
Okay.
now it'll be waiting till it's dried up.
Wait until the summer a little bit.
So it's not quite 8 o'clock yet, so we're going to jump back to some of our discussion items. Extension of remote meetings to March 31, 2025.
Second.
The governor will be so glad.
Is there any discussion? So as we all know, once we posted this, the Commonwealth had come down with a decision, so,
Like within 24 hours.
yeah, exactly.
I mean, I understand it's inconvenient for us in general and probably for the applicants, but I do think we should think about periodically getting together in person. There's a certain amount of value in that.
Sure. Is anyone not in support of this? Okay.
So what I would suggest is a month or, at least a month or two ahead of time, decide when you want to
Sure.
meet in person.
Yep.
Because I need advance notice for the
Yeah.
public notice and all that stuff.
Or we can kind of
So
look at
where
the
are we,
schedule
April?
and go like every 4th or every 6th or something that we can kind of
Quarterly.
align with, yeah, okay. Okay. Acceptance of Wellington open space signatures required?
Yes, you have already voted this. This is the property behind Wellington Circle. And the select board also voted it, and town council decided you also need to sign it. So there you go.
Well, thank you.
There's 2 copies there, you just sign them both. I appreciate it.
While we're signing, let's see, the Kaliva Steps. Is there any discussion?
What is that? What is it?
No problem.
What is the Cleveland Steps?
The Cleva steps there are some existing steps out there that they want to replace, steps down to
Oh.
the Fort Glen.
91?
Thank you.
Second, we have chapter 91.
There's some pictures there.
Thank you.
It will be above mean high water, so it does not need chapter 91.
So it doesn't, okay. So I was just looking, because that's pre-1984 there, for sure.
Yeah, they're a little rough.
They're clearly rough. Tim and I are going out, and if anybody wants to see them, Thursday at noon, if anybody would like to see those. There's actually also going to be a shed permit coming in if you want to do, 'cause the gate will be open.
So Thursday,
Thursday at noon. It might not be very convenient for anybody, but.
Thursday noon.
can you send, well, once we know everything that we're doing at the end of the night, send out a reminder?
Yep. And I guess my question basically is, I'm assuming this is probably notice of intent, not an RDA, given it's right there. It is kind of a replacement in kind. Well, I haven't even seen the plans yet, but they just want to know if it's a non-starter.
Is it going to be the same
Work with
footprint,
them.
roughly, or a little
I
wider?
wouldn't-
I was going to urge, tell them that the easiest path is to do the same footprint, and let's not start putting granite steps and all that stuff in there, just, you know,
Right.
secure the access.
Notice of intent.
Because it's dangerous right now.
I mean, it's their prerogative whether they want to file an RDA or come in
Yeah.
in notice of intent. I personally would probably not look very favorably on an RDA.
Yeah.
Where do the steps go to? Looks like it just, does it lead to the shoreline?
Just
or-
as, yeah. I haven't seen it yet myself either, but those are the pictures that the manager over there sent.
I would encourage a notice of intent. Okay.
Looks like it goes right into the lake.
This is above mean high water.
Okay, and next is gravel at Oak Hill.
So the existing, I don't know, dirt road from Harvard Road up into the trail systems, I don't know how many you know, it has, there's wetlands, and then it goes up to the road, and then the road just kind of goes like this. So it's just one big puddle in this time of year. So Aggregate might be willing to donate the gravel out there. I'm assuming this is probably a little bit more than routine maintenance, and you'd want to see a filing on it. That was my question.
What is the water from? Adjacent wetland?
Sometimes it floods, mostly it's the water just gets caught in there. Are you that familiar with
Yeah,
it?
Right, gets
Yeah.
rutted and stays.
It
Yeah,
gets rutted?
Close to the entrance there?
yeah.
Because there is a stream that comes down into that.
And there was a pipe under it.
So what are you talking about the filing? Because it's within 50 feet of something, or?
Yeah, yeah, it's not gonna, I'm gonna have to look more closely at it. I'm assuming it can just be re-graveling it, not changing the shoulder or anything like that, but.
Maybe like an RDA.
I think if there's a couple commissioners that just want to go ahead and take a peek at it before the next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not gonna happen, I'm guessing, until late summer, fall, or something like that. But, and Aggregate, I was over there because they're doing some stormwater stuff, and they were extremely interested in getting back and helping the town with various things. They had been donating gravel It went a little bit on hiatus. It's part of their bonus pool, actually, if they do things for the town, so they're extremely interested. There's more, I keep pushing, I just want gravel, and they said they want to do something.
Okay.
And it could be a lot, so I was gonna talk to Parks and Rec. There was something else, they might be able to help with a boardwalk build.
Oh, that'd be great.
I'm gonna tell them that means carrying lumber.
Yeah, not using equipment, but
I
carrying.
just
yeah.
wanna make,
What
yeah.
about the access road up the hill to Oak Hill? That always washes out yearly.
Is that
And
maintained
they
by
say,
White-
they just
yeah,
fill it
water
in with
department?
stone and it just washes out again.
Water
Like,
department?
that needs some serious drainage.
It
or
definitely
something.
does, and someone needs to throw themselves into that. Because
Well,
it's gonna take, it's more than just dumping gravel, it's gotta be
Oh, it has
fixed.
to be at this point. 'cause
That's the problem.
That hasn't worked.
I think the gravel's,
Yeah, it needs some like diversion
Right.
restrictions.
right.
yeah, and little stormwater
Hey,
things.
Questions, Sarah?
Yeah.
Nothing to do with this, but I heard aggregate, the equipment storage, I don't know if you folks saw it, the equipment storage lot, the one that we have been working diligently on, that's for sale. I saw an Omni sign outside.
Middlesex across
Oh, yeah,
the,
Middlesex,
Where
sorry.
Poseidon had the
And,
barges.
oh, really? Yeah.
And it's obviously for sale because they're moving equipment out of there. But anyway, we have jurisdiction, we all know, on the back of it and that pond, and so
Yeah, there's a lot back there.
we should pay attention to that
Yeah.
one, I guess.
Especially for the new, whomever the new owners might be.
Didn't they just, so it's not part of the main, because they just
I
put up a
thought-
new silo and everything.
I think they must be separating looks like they're moving most of their equipment further down. Yeah, the Poseidons, all that stuff is gonna be, looks like it's being moved.
Might be interesting to see where they're gonna move it though, because you still have the wetlands that carries on.
Yeah.
Okay,
I don't know, I just saw the sign
That's
there
good to
today.
know,
and
yeah.
okay.
And the only other thing Aggregate also mentioned is they're about to repaint their fence. And is there anything you'd like on the fence?
Nice to have a big like salamander or turtle.
He said, we can do something for Earth Day. I was like, do we want a sign in front of Aggregate that says Earth Day? I mean, but,
Put a nice mural.
I was gonna talk to the cultural council.
Yeah, I was gonna say, talk to the
Yeah.
cultural
It-
council, see if there's something
Yeah.
that works there.
Yeah.
They would know better too in terms of materials and all that stuff.
You're right, though, it's probably not the best slogan.
Fair enough.
Welcome to Littleton. Well, okay.
Earth Day is every day, that's a good one.
Okay.
Moving Earth every day.
All right, let's go ahead, 8 o'clock, continued public hearing, notice of intent, 265 Foster Street, Mass DEP 204-980, fine grading and paving of an existing gravel storage area. Welcome.
Hi.
Good evening.
Pat Conley from Beals Associates and Rich Sullivan from GIDs with me. So I just put together just a couple slides to kind of collect my thoughts, and then there's a couple images.
Awesome.
And then I told him I wasn't sure if I'd be able to line up,
Thank
so it might be better off printing out a package than.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess first things first, we received the peer review, stormwater peer review on Friday. So we're still working through the comments. They got pretty particular on some of them. So
You might not like that, but we do.
yeah, I figured. So we don't have responses for you tonight on that, but I figured it's still worthwhile to come in, kind of provide a summary of our site visit a week or two ago, some additional information. With that, I guess we can jump to, if everyone's first slide is just
Well, I am
orientation.
curious, now that you brought it up, is there anything in particular with that peer review that you were like startled with, or?
No. I mean, I was startled with
That's a
how
trust question.
specific they got in some of the comments.
Maybe I should ask Rich.
But yeah, it was, and then honestly, part of it, a lot of it was very particular to the stormwater and hydrocat, and that kind of just goes over my head. But
Okay.
we're still, responding to all that.
Okay, great, sorry to interrupt, but. I was
No
curious.
problem. So the first slide is just an aerial in case familiarize everyone with the site, and then the proposed site plan again just to refresh people's memories. We're just doing some fine grading and paving behind the warehouse, two bioswales, and then plantings in that. removing a little piece of the existing vegetation, or sorry, existing pavement within the 50-foot buffer to kind of bring it more into compliance. We're generally staying within the limit of clearing. So then the third one, this first one on the site visit. So a lot of the conversation and the questions had to do with there's a box culvert that comes out under the railroad tracks. There's a lot of water coming out of it and into a catch basin and then kind of just disappearing. And so the question kept coming up is, where is that water going? Where's that water going? So we looked at the information that we had provided to us from the previous owners and from GID, and there's a 30-inch drain line that goes parallel to the back of the building. On this side, it's highlighted in blue. And we think that's what conveys the water from the catch basin down and then releases it into the wetlands on the other side, adjacent to Route 2.
Have you been able to go to those other wetlands and see the other end of that pipe to see if it actually is discharging?
We did a previous site visit and saw water coming out.
Of that velocity that's going in
I
that
think we
thing?
gotta do it with camera. I mean, you've gotta be able to, or dye test or something.
I mean,
I don't,
you could surf on that water.
I don't.
So
thi-
at the end of the day, and this is what we say on the slide, according to the Wetlands Protection Act, it's a stormwater system that was installed, we believe, after 1996, which is the cutoff. So it's not considered a resource area. It's outside of a buffer area. So, it's a curiosity, but at the same time, it's not really a resource area to.
Well, with due regard, we talked about this on the site visit. Above the train is wetlands as well. So we know that we have seepage coming through off that hill down. And so I do believe there is a connection. So I don't want the commission to think that there may not be. We talked about that when we were on site as well.
Yeah, and I guess I would like to know, do we know how deep that pipe is running behind the building? That's something that I would be interested in, just because, we are gonna be impacting behind there. I guess if we have that kind of water flowing, we should have as much information as we can about it.
Okay, well, carry on, we'll come back to that, but is still a concern.
Sure, so then the next slide is just, we dug back, historic areas to try to figure out when that work went in. The records are kind of spotty. And based on the aerial photography, we think that whole system was put in between April 2008 and June 2010. So that was our way of confirming, okay, this is post-1996, this is a stormwater system, and therefore it's not subject to protection. The other point is...
Can I interrupt you real quick there, Pat? Or maybe this is a question for Amy. Do we have any filings for that? I mean, if the stormwater conveyance is discharging directly to a wetland, some component of it was constructed in the resource area.
This whole basin would have been constructed.
The oldest plans I have, some of this work had already been done, because that's when I was trying to see if that wetland basin was when it was constructed, but it's always kind of been on there for a very long time. So really, with a pipe.
So how does
like
that square with this? That seems like we got two different pieces of information.
Yeah, it's a separate, with the pipe, and, I went out there and seen it. If there are no wetland upstream of that wetland, of the pipe, then it's not a resource area.
Oh, sure, but it's coming from here and it's discharging here,
Down there,
is that right?
yes.
Pat? So if that conveyance is put in, okay, if it stops right here, we have no jurisdiction, but the fact that it was supposedly put in between 2008 and 2010, and is a conveyance that involves construction all the way down through here and a discharge right here, at a minimum, we should know something about what was constructed in the resource area, right?
But you don't see the outfall based on the volume on this side. So as we observed, tremendous amount of volume up top, and then
Not so much then.
nothing. So
Yeah, tremendous
that's
flow.
why I asked for discovery of that pipe. And you still had downspouts here of all this roof drainage. There's like 3 different downspouts here, and we don't know where the roof drainage is going.
No chance they go to that detention basin, is it?
No, so no, again, based on our spot information, we believe they're connected to that same drain line. You know, the spot's coming down right where the drain line is. But we, haven't
You
stuck a
think
camera down
they're
there.
connected to 30-inch?
Yeah.
Sorry, Pat, I interrupted you. So we don't have any filings associated with the construction of that.
I will double check. I believe the oldest one we had, it was already there.
Okay.
And then I guess the last point on this was just all the work that we're proposing doesn't impact this existing catch basin, pipe, outlet. All that remains unchanged. All the bioretention basin, the plantings, all that is separate. Today there's an outfall there, but the basin itself looked bone dry. It looks like it was like emergency outfall into the catch basin that I'm not sure when was the last time it ever was used. So it seemed to me that there was some kind of distinction between the two systems. So I just wanted to put that up there as well. And then moving on to the next one, just a couple more of other topics that came up. One Sarah just mentioned about the roof drains, where those connect. And like I said, we think they connect to the same drain pipe that we were just talking about. There are some concerns that the storage area would expand over time and go into the drainage areas. That's kind of the case today with the gravel. You can see it kind of, escape its original bounds. That's one benefit of paving this is you'll have your set bounds and it's not going to move, and some basins will be set and the pavement will be set. That's that.
If I can interject there, so what we talked about on site was that we're on a plane, and so when you pave it, there's no delineation, there's no curbing, there's no rocks, and then we're right into the basin. So there's no way to have the same occurrence of what we're going through now, is that the basin that runs all along the back is all overgrown and full and inoperable because things just kind of meandered and vegetation and push from that driveway got placed there. So I would, and we talked about this on the site, to come here tonight with possible thoughts of how to maintain the parking lot so it doesn't creep.
Yes, so I'll talk about, we did talk about that in operations and maintenance on that, so I have a couple slides on that. The other thing is just a reminder, there's a couple inch pea stone diaphragm around the perimeter that kind of separates the vegetation from the pavement itself.
Inches?
I just don't remember the width.
Okay.
We also discussed, if there's an oil spill or contamination spill, how do we prevent that from going into the resource area? So we're suggesting adding an explicit statement into the operations and maintenance plan, requiring a spill kit is kept on site, and that way, in the event that there is something, there's a kit there to immediately clean it up. And then the last topic was requesting clarity on the operations and maintenance plan. So I just provided a couple highlights. It's a 20-plus page document, so I didn't feel the need to go through all that for all our sakes. But basically, there's items in there that address sweeping, maintenance of all the lawn and vegetation,
Right.
maintaining those bio-infiltration areas, both the soil in terms of erosion, also the plantings. There's language in there about excavating the bioretention areas when they fail, kind of maintaining their design. There's topics in there on checking the structures during the winter, making sure any kind of waste or de-icing materials are stored away from resource areas in secured containers. The other part in terms of a potential spill, so we have language in there that any downstream pipe of the water quality structure or anything would be immediately plugged so that if the water doesn't carry that into the resource area. And then I just reiterated that we can add that language about requiring a spill kit on site. And then the last slide is just, if you don't like a lot of bullets and for graphics, this is a table that's from the O&M that succinctly summarizes the different elements of the proposed.
Nonetheless, I don't, even though they haven't addressed that, we should probably address our needs for discovery with respect to the location of that line, because it would be unfortunate to waste everyone's time to have them come in a couple of weeks and say, oh, well, actually, that line.
Right, and the roof drainage and the actual underground drainage.
I mean, in terms of that line, you guys saw it, you didn't feel like the flow on the upgradient side matched the flow on the downgrade, on the alleged
I
downgradient
didn't
side?
see where it came out. We didn't see where it went in. All we saw was a ton of water moving. That's all we saw. We looked down and said, holy crap, that's a lot of water.
Where you saw the water up at the top, but not, you didn't see any at that, whatever point that was.
Have you been out recently?
Not since then.
It'd be interesting to see the level of that detention pond and the water flow coming off after the rain after Saturday.
Yeah.
You have questions, Bus?
Yeah, I'm not really sure what sides, so you want to figure out the pipe, the roof connections, and the third one is even more here, so I'm not really sure what exactly.
In terms of the other site-wide wetlands, you mean, or?
Well, then there was that too, but you just said three things, and it was the.
So for
the drain
me,
pipe,
what I had said,
Yeah.
well, so the three things that were important to me are the same things on the site. Was where's the roof drain going? Where is the drain from the train going? And how are we going to stop the spread of, what I had asked is that as you delineate the pavement to the drainage areas, that we're not just talking 2 or 3 inches, that there's some means for, if someone comes in, they're not going to continue to work into those areas that have just been built.
Yeah.
Would you think like guardrails or boulders or something
Something.
along those lines?
Because it's just going to be the same thing again.
Better wells in the property, the western side of the property.
Correct. Where,
I mean, one of them
or
has a bios wheel, right? Isn't there, I mean, you can't.
when it goes straight into it, there's parking, square. There's
Or the Keystone in between.
Keystone is not going to keep a plow truck or storage trucks from putting units there. Once you have a roof beside it.
Sam, you said roof drains, you mean all the roof drains? not
Where
just
they're
the
coming
ones-
up. The only thing that I saw, I was not diligent enough to go to the front of the building, I only looked at the rear of the building.
Right.
And I saw 3 significant
So I guess
downspouts.
I guess part of the same ask that Sarah has, I'd just like to add that we know where all the drains are. Coming off the building. And that's important.
And where they go.
Where they go.
That's the bigger thing.
And would you say the same for the existing parking lot, or you just worry about the roof drains?
Parking lot, you can see right now, well, in the conditions that are there, you can see where it's shedding. But that is going to change because it's going to get paved.
I meant the front parking lot.
Oh, the front, they didn't walk there. So I think what Carl had asked is any of that going into the wetlands to the front of the property as you drive in on
To
the
me,
line?
the way I look at it, the entire property is being marketed to be sold, not just this parking lot that we're gonna pave. Right? The entire site.
No, it's not being sold, it's just a tenant's gonna come in.
Okay,
and,
so,
put
but
stuff in behind the
But
building.
nonetheless, tenant comes in, they're gonna use the entire site. Most likely,
Potentially, yeah.
or another tenant will use the other half of the site. Someone's gonna use this site. So we should know, in my mind, what's going on in the whole site. Even though we're just paving one section,
Right, and I think
we should
within
know, 'cause
our
it all ties together in one.
within our boundary is certainly, we have the ability to ask where the front of the building, where that drainage is going. And if it's going into the adjacent wetlands, then you really need to look at the whole project. But we just don't know that. Okay, we gotta keep going.
Before we step away from this though, so one of the things that we've asked the applicants to do is understand where the drain coming from underneath the railroad is discharging. Do we also want to ask?
Coming from and discharge.
Right, is
Source point.
coming in. So I guess that the ask was where is it discharging, but I wonder if we should also ask the applicant to reevaluate their conclusion that it's solely a stormwater discharge by evaluating the upgradient sources of water to confirm that it is in fact wetland.
Correct.
That are discharging through. Does that make sense, Pat?
Confirming
Okay,
site.
so
What the source of the water is?
you got wetlands up here.
Yeah.
So, right, the idea is if there's water that's draining underneath here, right, into this
Yeah.
catch basin,
Yeah.
that water now becomes jurisdictional because it's not just storm water, it's discharge from a wetland that is up here.
So you're talking about on the MBTA side, or do we have to go further and
You have to go
contact other-
further, you have to go to the slope on the other side of the
And,
road.
and there are records associated with that that I'm sure
It's been
Amy and
flagged,
Tim
so
can take a look at. So marrying those together to understand the source of that water will help us determine the jurisdictional nature of that or lack of that.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
thank you. We meet again on April 18th. Next is 8:15, project revision discussion, 19 Grimes, Lot 5A, Mass DEP 204-0969. If you could introduce yourself, that would be great.
Thanks. Mark Slager from Allen Engineering, here on behalf of Brian Lane Investments, Inc.
That means I gotta unplug something. I've got everything, you sent me this already, though, right?
Yeah. While she's working with that, I have a old-fashioned method here. Back in the fall, the commission approved a order of conditions for the construction of a single-family home, septic system, driveway, and associated utilities. At that time, we had proposed a underground roof drain system in the front yard. During construction, they hit some shallow bedrock, not only here, but over under the driveway and up around the sides of the house. They actually, during the soil testing, we hit some ledge back in here. So we couldn't put the system in, and we went to an alternative design that we were proposing tonight, which would be to put a stone drip edge around the perimeter of the house and then also under the deck. The house already has gutters and downspouts that would go into the drip edge, which is 2 feet wide by 18 inches deep. That would allow the infiltration of the groundwater next to the foundation and then also underneath the deck. From a hydrologic standpoint, it's very similar to what was proposed, just in a different location. From a runoff standpoint, we're not increasing the rate of runoff from the lot. I provided the runoff comparison also on the plan. So we're asking the commission to approve a minor modification to allow the relocation of the roof drain infiltration system.
Has that already been built?
The infiltration system, no, it is not. They put the gutters and downspouts on in anticipation of putting it here. The house is being built, framed, sided. They're doing the finish work on the inside now. The driveway's got the binder course of pavement on. I believe they'll be putting the finish on, and the closing is scheduled for the end of the month.
Is the new site closer to the wetland?
No, it's further away. With the exception of the small portion next to the house, the other one was going to be out here. It's still outside the 50-foot wetland buffer, but this one would be just directly adjacent to the house. And then the other one would be on the side and in the back, which would be further away. And then also this Friday, I'm also going out on the site to stake out where the construction posts go to make sure they put those in as well.
Any questions?
So this revision also includes stone beneath the deck, is that
Correct.
right? The deck was part of the original plan? Ian?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
So that's the only thing that's changing is the location.
Just, that's it, just the roof drain. The house, I've already located the house, it's within a couple inches of where it proposed. Same with the driveway, everything else is already built and in the same location.
That deck, like to put the pavers in, but if it's, shows as gravel, it needs to stay as gravel.
Yeah, that's what's on the
Because that's-
plan.
I understand that, but Mark needs to tell the owners,
No,
because that's happened on occasion.
oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, if they want to do anything, they'd have to file a new NOI or at least an RA.
Recognize that there's been lack of communication on
Yeah.
some
yeah.
parts that
Sometimes we
it's
gotta
best
sit
to.
down and,
Process seems really straightforward, but everybody in this room is a little bit.
We all understand the
Yeah.
process.
How are our trees doing up front?
As far as I know, they're all still there. I haven't been there in a few weeks, but they look fine.
And I forget which trees were which, but some of them were already, before they even started in the kind of section.
I think it's a reasonable request, and it's really closer to the wetlands, it's,
Amy,
Sounds
what's
like
your,
it's the only alternative, really, unless you can come up, unless there's something else you can recommend for them.
yeah.
what would you like from us for this, Amy?
I think just to vote for a minor modification.
Yeah.
So I will be sending you a letter and just reiterate that this O&M that's on the plan needs to be in perpetuity.
Move that the Conservation Commission approves a minor modification as discussed to 19 Crown Clean, Lot 5A, DEP file number 2040969.
Thank you, do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks.
I like those.
Alright. Now we're gonna hear the 820 project revision discussion, 38 Harwood, Mass DEP 204-0923. Is there someone here? Yeah. If you could introduce yourself, please.
Richard Watson from Watson Homes. I bought a pre-existing lot with a pre-existing house on it on 38 Howard Ave. House is done, and I'm looking to finish the landscaping. There was an existing pool back here that I had to fill in back in November. And when I went out there, I found a 35 by 10 by maybe 12 concrete patio that I had to tear up, and I threw in the pool and covered it up. My proposal is to move this planting detail back here, right in front of the 50-foot offset. A couple of reasons. There's a patio back here, and this is really good soil here, so I wanted to move it back so they can do a little more lawn and not to create a pool over the septic. So there's obviously existing lawn here that you can, if you went up back, you can notice that there's existing lawn and patio, so I just want to push this back further. It's all sand and gravel at this lot, so it's real, the slope is real gradual, so the water should recharge in.
That's the 50
You just pointed to.
on your map, on yours, is the same
Yeah, in
line,
front of
that
50.
one there?
Yeah, that's the pool, that's where the rectangle.
Oh, gotcha.
So that was already all, well,
And what the patio was in here, I assume, somewhere?
yeah.
In there.
Yeah. Yeah, pictures of that for this.
What else do you wanna do?
Just that, just push that back and create a little more lawn and stop the water from like pooling over the septic.
So, Richard, I was looking at this as you were speaking, so approximately how much more are you looking to naturalize into lawn?
Probably, I'd say 30 feet, 35 maybe tops.
So past the meadow, what's called the meadow area?
Yeah,
So the original order conditions, along with those plantings, was gonna be boulders, and the area that you see as meadow area was, not to be mowed more than once a year. And you can certainly tell that it used to be lawn,
Right, so now they want to have lawn in the meadow area.
yes.
After we
Why
worked
did-
hard to have the meadow lawn.
and if you go back, the neighbors, they got a pool that's in the 50-foot. It's all pre-existing houses back there.
What was the reasons for the once-a-year mowing in the meadow area?
Protection.
Probably keeping invasive species out.
Keeping the invasive?
I think that's the original. They could let it go, but they can't mow more than once a year. Was the original order.
So we're looking at changing the order.
Right, significantly, by 30 feet.
So Rich, maybe I missed it, you may have explained it. Talk me through your concern here about water pooling again.
Well,
So I was trying to get my head around the site. and I-
It doesn't show a patio on, I got it drawn on here, it's in green. And just with this berm here, it's just, it's gonna discharge into the soil because the soil is so good. And it's very, the slope is only like I think it goes from 32 to
Okay, so it's 230.
233.
Right.
Okay, so
So it's not.
constructed a patio
Yeah,
here,
there's a
you're
patio
getting more
there.
runoff
Goes all
from
the
the
way, actually goes a
patio.
little bit over the septic tank.
Okay. Over the septic tank?
Yeah.
Okay, so patio here,
It's already
water's
there.
discharging, sitting on top of your
Yeah.
septic.
Yeah,
Is the patio in?
the patio's in. Everything's done, just the landscaping. Out there, moved in, everyone's there.
Was the patio part of the plans that we approved? originally?
It was not, it's also outside.
No, I understand that, but
It was not.
Riverfront area.
It's outside the 200-foot, but yeah.
Well, you said it went over the septic area, so.
Just over the tank.
Oh, the tank,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess I'm struggling to find a justification here to modify the order of conditions to accommodate a change that the applicant is.
I think it's worth the site.
Where exactly is the water coming out?
Well, it's a very, it doesn't, the pitch isn't that much, so whatever comes off the patio is gonna go into the leaching area. This berm here, it's gonna sit there where otherwise it'll slowly get into the gravel that's further back towards the pool area.
The side of this berm in front of the planting area.
It's not that big. It's just enough to, probably 18 inches or so. But again, this doesn't,
And is that built and established, the berm and the
that has
plantings?
not been done yet.
Okay.
What if we get rid of the, what was the,
What if you push the berm back and put the yard in front of the berm? Right on the 10-foot plan.
Still don't see a compelling reason to change it.
I think it's a challenge because we worked really hard to look at the site and have, the discussion on the meadow area and the berm and the plantings.
Yeah.
Kyle, thoughts, or Carl, or Michael?
One in Howard is it? I'm trouble.
When you come down Kimball Street, that short street off of, by
Yeah.
Dunkin's Dump, you take a left, it's like the third house on the
Second or
left.
third on the left, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, and it drops off quite a bit out back.
It does, it goes
It's way down.
straight
Yeah,
down.
yeah.
okay.
I mean, I guess
I mean, there was existing law there before, so that's my only reason I'm here. If there was a new law, I wouldn't even bother asking.
right. Like Sarah said, we had gone through this process for a few months to try to naturalize that area
Yeah.
back into what it was before it was lawn.
So you say you've already got it sold
Yeah, they already moved in.
and moved in, is this something that they wanted you to?
Yeah, they're hoping we had a little more yard.
But they purchased it knowing,
Yes, I told them I'd
Matter.
come in front of the board and ask you.
okay.
We still have to build the berm and the plantings. So there's not a certificate of compliance or anything yet?
No.
I'd say we still have ways to go.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not even built in practice, do we know that there's gonna be much pooling of water with the proposed? I mean, the berm height didn't look horribly bad.
Actually, no.
You scroll back over, I mean,
That's a good point. Yeah, because that might help in terms of saturation.
Yeah.
And control some of that extra water running down the front. Thoughts? Give them some guidance?
Has everyone been out to the site?
We were
It
all
might,
out.
I was thinking it might be worth a site walk and maybe stake out where you want to have the new extent and/or berm or planting or boulders or whatever it's going to be.
Well, I think we'd have to be, I think the commission would want to go that far. You'd have to understand if that's the pleasure of the commission to do so, because it would be a significant change.
I'm not opposed, I'm opposed to this change, but I'm not opposed to giving the applicant a chance to show me something that I haven't seen it in person. So if there's a compelling reason to do a sidewalk, if you think on behalf of your clients, I'd be happy to do it. I don't look particularly favorably upon this change, but I'm willing to have my mind changed. If something else suggests.
Things that you'd want to do is put the whole berm in with the stakes, front and back of the berm, so that you'll see where that's supposed to be. And then put a stake of where you want to have, where you'd like to go with your line.
Okay.
Yeah, it's something that identifies the approved plan and the proposed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what the limits of wherever they are, size.
So I'm not sure how soon you could have that staked. We'll meet again on the 18th. How soon do you think you could have that?
I can get it down this week.
So do we want to try and look at the following week put something on our schedule now, and then you can let Amy know when you have it done. So what we'd like to do is to set a date now.
Sure.
So if you don't have it done, then we'll back off on that date. Next week, somebody want to throw a date out?
I'm generally available Tuesday and Wednesday afternoon next week.
After what time?
Tuesday's the 11th, Wednesday's 12th.
What time, Chase?
Really, I work from home either day, so
Oh.
anytime in the afternoon.
I'm looking in Florida, so I'll go to
Andrew,
Kyle, are you around all next week?
If we're talking midday, that
Yeah.
would be preferable.
Which day is better for you, Tuesday or Wednesday?
Tuesday might be better, but don't go there. I can make Wednesday work.
Okay, so let's, Tuesday the 11th, and Chase, what time did you say?
anytime afternoon.
Kyle?
If you want me there, I'll be 1:30 at Boston, so I'll be in the wetlands there.
So do we want to do,
You just do it like around 12:30 or something, is that?
That's what I've done.
Does that give you enough time to get it staked?
Yeah.
So we're saying 12 or 12:15? That's good.
12:23.
That I can wait.
12:23. Michael, you're good with that, 12:23 on
No,
Tuesday
it's what?
at 38 Harwood.
Are we saying 12:15?
12:15.
Literal. Okay,
Okay.
Please,
All right, thank you.
good, thank you. Okay, hearing on the 825 project revision discussion, 26/28/30 Cricket Lane, Mass DEP 204-1938.
Hi, I'm Peter back next week. We met before over Zoom, and it's kind of been a long road coming for us because I think it was almost a year, it was probably a year and a half when you approved that project. And we had an issue with the neighbor blocking the easement, and we weren't able to get access to our property, which is cost a lot of money and every thousand legal fees. And we finally got a judgment from land court that the easement needs to be cleared. Still not cleared, but continuing on with the court. With this, we've found few different options on how we can save money and stuff. And one of the things we came across was a modular home. And you folks approved back in August of 2021 was a 24 by 42 with the porch off the side and 5-foot deck off the front. And along the other sides. We were hoping to implement this that we could get a 28 by 44 home and not have the deck off the front, but continue with the porch on the side. The modular people think that they can do it, but the concern is the size of Cricket Lane in getting the 4 pieces of the home out of Cricket Lane. So they think they can do it, but he can't guarantee it. When they came out to measure, it was one of the 2 times that it snowed this winter, so it's not quite fortunate.
And yeah, my kids had 3 snow days.
Yeah.
You figured out what
And,
That was a cold day.
like Andrew, this gentleman's currently in Florida, so we couldn't get him back out in the time frame to measure again. So I'm asking for a little bit of flexibility there. If we could go with either the 28 by 44 envelope or a 26 by 44 with the deck remaining. So the 28 we wouldn't have the deck, and that's if they can get it down the street. But the 26 by 44 would like to have the deck still, please.
And this is the deck on the top of this plan that you're talking about?
I call it on the water side.
The water side.
Yeah. Yeah, the porch would be like on the 26 side, and the deck is the water side overlooking the water. It's a little bit bigger, but it's not, anything outrageous. And it's difficult because with the modular homes, they can do great things with specific sizes, but they're limited to their specific size. You can create all these different floor plans, but the floor plans are all based on, the envelope size. So that's why we're here in front of you now.
And you don't actually have the hard copy of the plan, do you?
I don't think they do.
It was in the email.
No, I'm
I don't have
talking
paper
like
copy.
Oh, I'm sorry.
big plan. Just to see the wetlands highlighted.
No, yeah, these are the numbers right here. But I don't have the color plan with me.
Sarah, this. Just, I don't know if you pull up this plan.
I'm just curious how much closer we are to the wetlands.
So it would be 2 feet
Yeah.
if they can't get the 28 footer,
But we're in the 50. aren't
Oh,
or
yeah,
if they
we're-
can't get the 28 footer, it'll be a foot less.
Okay.
If they can get the 28 footer down the street, it'll be a foot less from what was approved.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, this was a site where we had 3 small cottages that were falling down that we aggregated into a.
Correct.
So I'm going to tell you that the relevant calculus in my mind is what was the square footage of those 3 originally? And how does that compare to the square footage of what was approved? And how does that compare to the square footage of now these proposed revisions? Because I'm going to be a real stickler for not I didn't like this project from the get-go, but I'm going to be a real stickler for not adding any additional square footage. So in my mind, the comparison is not necessarily to what was proposed, but rather what existed prior to any of this project.
If you scroll back over, Amy, on that, it shows the existing 3, and it looks like it's a significantly larger number of square footage that was existing. I mean, that one alone that you're pointing at is probably close to what he's proposing, right?
I know that Ross Associates, when they, we came before you, had those numbers specifically. I can't remember off the top of my head, I wasn't prepared to answer that question, but I know that it's significantly smaller. I believe 26 alone is,
These have basements.
I want to say it's 26 by 40.
And these have basements and the others were cottages, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so taking a look at that plan, it looks like, I'm going to guess here, the square footage for 26 and 28 is called out. The square footage for 30, it doesn't look like it is, do you see it, Kyle?
I don't see it here.
But if we,
And 30 was actually a 2-shared residence.
yeah, I'm looking at the ground coverage square footage.
I mean, it looks pretty similar to 28.
Wait, no, those square footage numbers, oh no, those are parcels.
Oh,
That's the splotch, yeah.
Never mind, that's not gonna.
I mean,
So you would at least want to see any change from existing to proposed square footage, as well as distance, if it's changed from the wetland.
Yes, specific, yeah, distance for sure.
Yeah, essentially, I mean, what would be useful to see is a table, right, that compares several parameters, right? Square footages from pre-construction to what was approved to what's now proposed. Change in the offset, and I understand you have multiple proposed options here. So to the extent that you've got option 1 and 2 and 3, then you might need to populate that table with option 1, 2,
Yeah.
and 3.
Yeah.
So offsets,
Right.
square footages.
I mean, what did, and forgive me because I don't do this like you guys do, but if it's, the 26 by 44, are we just going 2 more feet closer?
Closer to the wetlands.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
And we have a
But losing the deck,
very,
potentially.
yeah,
But he's already in
absolutely.
the 50
Yes.
and he's increasing. So livable space is different than deck.
Yes.
So not created equal. So I think if you were to even just have the deck go away for the moment, look at your square footage, but look at it in proximity, you really can't move it closer to the wetlands. So you'd have to try and see different square footage.
And I think what you're saying is, it's just a couple feet, what's a big deal, right? We have a pretty strict set of expectations for work this close to.
No, I understand that. I guess what I was saying was, as far as like the calculation, if you were saying like, oh, it's 48 feet off the water, And I said, well, we're only going 2 feet, then it's 46 feet up. The water was, you know, my question, right? Like,
Right, but anything, if we were talking 54 to 52, that would be different.
Yeah.
But because you're under that 50 threshold,
yeah,
everything's magnified.
yeah.
And here, you're like 15 feet, right? 20,
Right.
How much?
rough guess, 15 or 20 feet.
15, 20 feet.
From-
So.
And you'd also want to make sure what, if any, changes you have to make to this retaining wall that's below the deck.
Oh, right, okay.
To be able to get it in there.
Does the foundation change for modular versus what you had proposed to?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
What
yeah,
is
that's
the-
why we, like, it would be, because what was approved was 24 by 42, so we were hoping to expand it.
No, I guess I meant is it still a concrete
Yes.
4-foot footing type
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm hopeful this gave you guidance. We can't give you any answers without more definitive information, but
So, let me ask just one last question, maybe.
yeah, we're all ears.
If, you know, we can't go closer, right, and we have to stay with the 24, could we make the 42 like a 46?
And take out the deck and the porch?
Well, continue with the porch because there's mosquitoes.
My answer to that is going to depend a lot on what you show me on that table in terms of areas.
Okay, all right, cool.
Because we're looking at your proximity to the wetlands line, but we're also looking at your footprint as
Yeah.
well. So if you're enlarging your footprint but still staying the same, the commission could still say no because you're within the 50.
Yeah,
So we were hoping that you'd come to us and say, I'd like to make changes, but it's going to be less, not more.
okay.
That's usually favorable.
Yeah, you want to go to 22 by 40. Knock yourself out.
So
All right,
hopefully that's helpful.
okay, all right. Thanks for your time.
Okay.
Good night.
Have a good
night.
Excellent. I'll go back to, I think, Matt now.
I just got a
Tree policy discussion.
Hey, Matt.
Hey, Matt, thanks for coming in. Sorry we didn't make
Shade Tree Committee and a hearty hello. I haven't seen each other in person.
I haven't even seen you.
We haven't seen each other in person.
What a day.
It's a first.
I can't miss this.
See you, sir.
This is so exciting.
I think I waved to you, Matt. That's funny extent
Your name has certainly come up enough times, that's for
Oh,
sure.
yeah, well, you know, she said, Mark, stuff's happening to trees.
Yep.
So, I guess you want me to give an update on what I've been up to first, or something
Yeah.
the Shade Tree Committee has been up to?
Well, could we give you our things that we've noticed tremendous increase in proposals removing trees? And to the point that it's really got our attention because some of the trees that we're seeing being removed are fairly good-sized, old, established trees.
Mm.
And it's really
Some,
kind of...
some rare.
Yeah, and I mean, there's been, well, the last instance was, you know, behind the subway and that little development that's going on up there. There's very diversified wooded area. I mean, really, really diverse in the species, tree species. And we're losing a lot of trees.
Yeah, and then so she had mentioned, to the point of the matter is the town doesn't really have a bylaw for trees.
Right.
You know, we have a little bit with conservation, you know, just in like rah, let's protect some trees, which is great. I like to think we've done a great job kind of pushing that along. So Shade Tree, it just in general was going to, or is tackling, I have a draft, it's not very good right now, so I didn't bring it. But we're working on a draft so that we'll have a bylaw to present to the town. So lots of different levels when it comes to that, you know. So if you just want some general information, Amy had mentioned just general information sort of stuff. Mass.gov
DCR, Urban Community Forestry. We try, this is my day job, so I do for a living. We do try and collect ordinance examples, ordinance and bylaw examples, and have them posted on the website. It's not sorted well, so you just kind of have to pick and choose, but, the typicals, you'll see Concord and Lexington, just places where you would assume have decent bylaws. And so been sort of lifting language, borrowing here and there, and kind of assembling for what we think some of the highlights and the best pieces are for a Littleton bylaw. So in general, public land, public trees, getting something in writing around that first, we don't want to jump all the way in. I think we start by establishing, the baseline protections, the bare minimum that we should have, and that we're getting because we applied for, and hopefully we're getting Trees to USA status. One of the criteria is to have, on the books ordinance defining the roles of, public shade trees and how that all works. That's in general captured under Mass General Law, Chapter 87. It's another thing that I kind of work with. So most cities are just sort of brought in under that, but the program's auditing cities and towns to raise the bar so that it's a better standard. So just getting into the Mass General Law right now, in a couple of years we'd have to have a real bylaw in the books anyway. So the timing is right. It's all pretty good.
The timing's late.
Better late than
What's the aphorism about when to plant a tree, right?
The other side is that everything's expected, which is where we're heading. And then once you have that in place, certain areas have more to your point of private land sort of tree protection ordinance, like heritage trees, significant trees, based on size class typically, but it could be species or uniqueness or whatever. They'll actually be, written on the books, protection, or at least review. Something that will come to the table. We'll have to sit down and talk of it. Most everything that the law is general, national law around tree protection goes through our tree warden, who's a member of the Shade Tree Committee, obviously, and participates, which is great. Some towns have a tree warden in name only, just DPW director or something, because you're just supposed to have the title. Steve Wooden, for those of you who don't know, the highway department. So working with him, and the trees that we planted at the common, we're looking to do new plantings with Parks Department now. So that's really where all our attention has been focused. Just super happy that we have funding again. The Shade Tree Committee has been funded for many, many years. And then within the last 3 years, we got funding. So I've been able to put trees back in. We had the emerald ash borer, knocked down a bunch of trees on public spaces, and then trying to reforest some of the parks, playgrounds, areas like that. What we hope to do in general is to provide this funding, if it happens every year, to sort of that setback, the tree right away. We don't really have sidewalks in this town, but in that area, sort of near the road, where the shade tree is planted in the past. So way back, they planted. There was a big push around the 90s. A lot of the trees you see along the way, they put in, Rick Finley, Kim Hearn, the usual suspects. So we want to pick up on that. And,
Can I ask, how much is the funding?
Well, right now it's 5,000. So our first allotment was 5,000, then went down to 3,500, and then this year, fiscal 23, they brought it back up to 5,000.
And there was a grant a few years ago.
There was a grant. Thank you very much that we helped to get, and that developed our tree guidance, book.
Wasn't there development that there was just money?
Amazon put a bunch of money into it.
Amazon, did you guys?
Into our tree,
Where was
into the tree.
It went to Browns Woods.
Okay.
Okay.
It was either $20,000 or $40,000.
Yeah, 20 is the number that I remember.
I thought it started at 21 up to 40 when they did the back piece.
Okay. But now we've got to make sure that we're,
Yeah, he said that would have been earmarked for
Right.
shade tree.
okay.
Yeah. And then bylaw will help sort of codify that of if you're not in compliance or if there's some issue with your property, like, obviously thing one would be tree preservation. So retaining trees that we have. And I've been advocating for this for a long time. We have our little pamphlet of, tree protection zone, these are critical roots, things like that. Like, sure, you can have construction, but you can retain trees too. it doesn't take that much to do that, so trying
With
to.
your
do
guidance, we've been
more-
trying.
Yeah.
I don't know
yeah.
how successful we are sometimes with some of the developers, but.
It is tough, but to get this stuff actually not just a handout, but also in the town bylaw, so we would include all that, we would include, definitions, tree protection, and these are all just the general parts of the bylaw that would come along with it. Talking about, tree preservation fund, so again, we have shade tree accounts, so we'd probably just end up being that. But having that in place, so first, preservation, and then if that doesn't work, there could be a tree value assessment that would say how much would go in. And that varies a lot. I get questions, well, how much is this tree worth? And there's a lot of different ways to come up with that formula. So we could decide on one and get it in our first draft, and then if we want to start upping the game as we go along, and that's what other cities in town are doing. I'm working on going through, so there's a couple of master plans that just came out, Boston and Cambridge have their urban forest master plans that are about 300 pages or something. So
That's a lot of trees.
getting through here a bit, but some interesting stuff, and I brought a few things just to look at. But talking about tree value, this was interesting. Usually, that replacement tree caliper, 2-inch caliper. It's kind of what we plant with the trees you see on the common. That's actually 3-inch. So some of the larger trees, instant effect. But they're saying, okay, typically you look at the diameter of a tree. Maybe it's a 24-inch tree, so you're like, okay, it'll cost 12 2-inch trees to replace it. But it's not really same for same. There's a lot of ecosystem services. There's a lot more that those trees have in terms of actual value. So some communities are going in a different route. So that one tree's replacement could be $50,000 instead of $1,000. This was interesting in Cambridge because they said, well, we want the replacement cost of those trees plus a 5-year period of maintenance and watering associated with that tree. So that's really the key, is that a lot of people are putting trees in the ground. How do you get it to stay? How do you get it to survive? And that's what we've been going through, even here just in the town. And we said, oh, we'd like to put some trees in at the park. And we said, well, then that comes off of our water meter. How are we going to? Okay, well, then now we have to put some money towards that. So that's covered. So, their example here is, okay, cost of tree plus associated maintenance, and then you start to get a better sense of what a tree value would be. So that's something you include as well, and then maybe that you all can
Next up.
Yeah.
I've got the monthly slideshow on the TV out in the main hall, so this is April's that Matt did.
It's April's tree month. Okay, yeah, so we'll be doing the
What
seedling.
towns near us have the designation of the Tree USA?
Few cities around here, probably the same Route 2-ish. It would be Lexington, Concord, working your way Acton, up and down through there. It's about 100 out of the 351 towns and cities have Tree USA. So it's a great first place, good place to start to just get people to start thinking more about trees. And I think that's a big part of what we're up against is just, like you said, just education, letting people know what's the right way to go about this, what's not, so.
I have another objective for us too, which is to provide clarity for our applicants, right? That they conceptually understand that we expect some tree management, but to be able for them to come in and say, I would think we would want to put out guidelines rather than strict regulations, or I don't know, but some guidelines that give us some latitude to work, but so that they come in and they say, okay, we need to take out 6 trees and each tree is this diameter, and then based on your guidelines, we need to replace it with this number of trees at this size, right? So they can communicate to their clients right off the bat, this is just got to be a carried cost. It's not really up for negotiation. Here we go, you need to be prepared for this. And then if there are site-specific things, sure, we can account for those, but that there's a really clear framework within the jurisdictional areas that we have, oversight over to A, move the process faster, and B, make it equitable, so everybody's getting the same thing instead of ad hoc. Does that make some sense?
And then also, when we have the developers or layperson that comes in and just obliterates their land, and then it's like, oh, sorry, It's like, oh, so that just happened with us recently,
Yeah.
so now we're like.
We lost a
no,
lot of trees.
We lost a
right?
lot of trees, and it's like, this is not the end of this discussion.
So another very important piece of all this is that cross-communication in towns, that planning board probably has the most say on a lot of this, like, we're allowing land clearance, right off the bat, and then they come and say, oh, so areas, like Cambridge, or people who are doing a bit more are trying to blend the boards, and they're also admitting that it's difficult, but yeah, like one of the
And that's one of our challenges, right, is that our jurisdiction, for the most part, we've got a riverfront area, but for the most part is 100 feet off the well end, and then any part of their project that's 101 feet, they can, as far as we are concerned, can do whatever they want, right? Planning board has a different perspective, but.
Right, and then one of the recommendations that the Forest Task Force had was to get a landscape architect on the planning board. Like, there's no one here who's looking at this from a vegetation perspective, Like, why don't we put an architect, landscape architect on the planning board so that from the get-go, we've got a better conversation, So this is very development-driven, this has always been development-driven, but we've reached sort of that tipping point where we're gonna lose too much.
Have you seen, in your review of the regulations, one of my concerns is, let's say a project has to remove 6 trees to go forward. But it may not make sense, let's say the replacement ratio is 3-to-1, right? It may not make sense to replace it with 18 trees, right?
They may not have room.
They may not have room, there may be 100 reasons why 18 trees is a bad idea. I've seen some models from some cities in Mass and other places where the applicant is then paying into a fund, maybe administered by the Shade Tree Committee, right? Like, it's $300 for every tree we can't replace that we are otherwise obligated to replace. Is that a common model? Have I just tripped over?
No, that's, so like, I used to work in New York City, and that, there's no place to put things, so there was fund, in lieu of, pay in, but there was also a radius, so, because you don't want to lose the canopy in that area, so everything, not everything, but a lot of stuff now is canopy based and back to equitable distribution of canopy. So we're not like a predominantly environmental justice community, it's just not our thing. But a lot of these other cities and towns, okay, we're losing some canopy over here, but it's really, really needed over here because it's been, disproportionate. So there are, either you say you can replant in a certain radius around this spot, so this spot isn't quite losing that canopy, not losing those ecosystem services, or sort of like transfer development rights idea where we're going to take it from here and bring it over here where it's needed. So a little bit of both.
So just that was what it was on. It was like, we understand we're putting this warehouse in, but we're also trying to limit expanding beyond that, so we really can't replace what we're taking down.
Sure.
And that was what their resolution to that was how would we provide
Yes, the
funding
mitigation was
to-
protecting trees, basically, not planting trees in that case, but protecting trees.
Right.
By the purchase.
Which would also be amended.
Hmm?
Let's get more of that.
Oh, yeah. Hey, I want the money.
So certain species more valuable than other species? Because, well, what I get worried about in this town is losing hardwood species because we have so many softwoods.
Yeah.
And when I see the old mature deciduous being lost, it really worries me.
Yeah, it takes longer to replace.
Right.
So, yeah, so a tool for doing this, U.S. Forest Service has an online tool called iTree, if you haven't heard about it, where you can put in species-specific and location-specific information, and it generates value based on a variety of ecosystem services from peer-reviewed science. So that's another way to get values with multiple variables.
I imagine the value is commensurate with how many of those particular species are in the town, too. if this had like some
Fine.
townwide
Yeah.
survey or of trees.
Yeah,
Not that we're gonna do that, but
that'd be a lot of work.
it'd be a lot of work.
Here's a retirement job for you.
Go count the trees.
That would keep me busy, wouldn't it?
Well, it's also hard, because we did that site walk with the trust ages ago about the, what's his face's trail, that Jim O'Neill wanted, or Lazarus Trail, where they're gonna identify trees as an educational piece of it.
So what you described, what I understood is that the Shade Tree Committee is looking at sort of a stepwise implementation, looking first at public lands before you look at private lands, is that right?
Yeah, I feel strongly we just need to get something on the books first, just to start. Like, you don't want to come to town meeting with this big vote thing and bringing something contentious right off the bat, you know, like, let's make this easy. This is something that in general already exists under Mass General Law. We just need to sort of ratify this in the town. We need to just make it clear, have people understand, you know, the expectations of protecting, planting, and preserving trees in the town, why it's important, you know, our mission statement, our goals, you know, that sort of stuff, which we've gotten onto at least the Shade Tree website. And then from there, you can start to ratchet up. You know.
What if I told you I thought we could be more ambitious?
That's where my head's at too.
Because we have a different mechanism.
Yeah.
And I guess the way I
Well,
see
in the
to
buffer
be
zone, you do.
more ambitious is that it may not cover the whole town, right? You might be looking at it from the Shade Tree Committee perspective, the public lands, and the other thing to move forward in parallel would be the Conservation Commission jurisdictional areas, right? That I think also makes a lot of sense to people, right?
Taps to the developer.
Right, before we do something townwide, which I also think we should include the planning board in this discussion, but I don't think we need to walk before, or, you know, sort of crawl before we walk. I think we could probably advance the Conservation Commission component of that simultaneously with the Shade Tree Committee.
And you're looking for guidelines or best management practices?
Language for a policy that we could adopt internally.
Right, that we also have, right, we can scale it up, right? There can be a policy which we can just adopt, or we could go to a sort of bylaw level, which
I would like to get to a bylaw level as soon as possible.
Right, but I think you start with a policy. I mean, you can do both, but
I mean, I think we've had enough.
the bylaw will
We've
take
had enough
time.
experience in this that we know it's a problem.
But you'd have to take the bylaw to town meeting,
Sure.
and but you could adopt the
Then
policy.
you open up the bylaw.
Correct.
And for me, mitigation is always the issue. Because if they're chopping down trees to build a house, they can't plant trees. So working out that, I think.
But that would be in the policy if
Right.
it's unfavorable on your lot, then it could be that you.
Yeah.
The problem, I understand what you're saying about policy, the problem with policy has no teeth.
But then you
It's
guys
just a
enforce it.
policy.
I
It doesn't.
disagree.
I think, yeah, and a lot of people, if they know this is a big issue coming in,
Yeah.
they're gonna,
And at least we'd have something in place until that bylaw is actually.
No, I get it.
yeah.
I have no objection to writing a good policy and then 6 months later bringing it to town meeting and saying,
Or
hey,
bylaw.
we'd like to incorporate this as a bylaw.
Gotcha.
So Matt, what's your concern of easing the town into the sea? Have you heard of pushback?
Well, no, I'm
people
just
are actually
thinking,
concerned?
there's city, I was just thinking townwide. Pushback, yeah, I mean, every time I talk to any community about trees, you know, not everyone is, you know, reading the Lorax. There are plenty of people who just want to cut, and, you know, that's great, everyone is entitled to their own opinion. I think a lot of it depends on the way that the conversation's framed and the information that you're providing and why it makes sense to preserve. Because at the end of the day, you know, you're hot, you're gonna stand under the tree. Like, you know, everybody gets it. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't want it to get off track onto some sort of political, you know, slant. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with, you know, preserving and protecting our resources, our town character, whatever people like about their neighborhood. It's in general something along those lines, you know.
Have you talked to the planning board at all?
Not yet.
I mean, my impression is they're probably interested, but they can't do the lift.
I've had a couple conversations with planning board members, and they are
It varies.
qualitatively interested.
Right.
But I think
Yeah.
the
They're not
devil's in the
really in charge.
details, and
We're-
sure,
we're-
if someone else wants to do it, we'd be happy to.
We're doing.
When you said you were already working, I was like,
Yeah,
"Oh, that's
we're-
great.
It'll get done, you know, and then when it's ready, we'll bring it back,
Yeah.
at least, you know, just for general review, and you guys will be working, we'll be working on policy, you know, and conservation. And then, you know, planning board could have input on, you know, and then that'll move forward as a package deal. But yeah, we're absolutely, Shade Tree,
But I also think it comes down to us for also education on our website, when someone comes in and files with a permit or something that's like, are you removing a tree? Then it takes them over to a different track of, here's what you need to know.
Yeah.
The other thing
Just
that
like the
we,
waiver. It's like, it's just another track.
we should include in our policy would be that our expectation is site plans, when they come in, have identified
Already.
the species and the diameters, right? So that we've got the information right off the bat.
Yeah.
Because we're often sending applicants back like,
Yeah.
We definitely continued just based on tree count and descriptions. for
What
sure.
about color? I mean, color the plans. We still come back to that.
I was like, I thought all trees were.
That's what I was
That's what I-
Well, it's a red oak, it's a green.
Exactly what you-
No, it's not like even just getting a wetlands line on a plan.
and that's great, because then right off the bat, you can say, oh, heritage tree, it's over 24 inches, this is, you know, special category.
It'd be nice to have that definition
Mhm.
of
Yes.
all that, so we have our own glossary.
Yeah,
That would be nice.
And I think we also are going to want to include in our policy some discussion of the ecological function of snags, right? That a non-living tree is not void of ecological value. In fact, it arguably could have more.
But
ecological value.
unless someone can see a picture of either life inside or a hawk perch on the top or something, I think we need to actually embrace that and have it on the website.
You can do that, right?
That's exciting.
yeah.
We appreciate you coming in and obviously all the work that you've done.
It's good to see everybody.
Good to see
Funny
you
that
too.
things don't change.
The room does,
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah, different room, same conversation.
different faces. We're almost all here, except for Brian.
Not to put any pressure on you, but is there any sort of, do you have any sort of timeline that you're looking at?
I wanted to do it, get it done this year, so it'd be ready in time for like next spring. But we've just been thrown off with the whole planting stuff. I thought it was gonna be pretty easy, but again, at least the departments are talking to each other, but we kind of had a plan getting together and like, oh, no, you gotta take it, kind of Parks Committee, so meet with Parks Committee, you know, just everything takes longer than you think.
I guess that's what I was going to ask, is it, could we ask for, as we develop our policy, because my sense is, we should probably, you've got a lot on your plate trying to move that forward, but could we simultaneously ask for your help and input as we develop our policy,
Yeah.
but also offer our help in terms of sort of weighing in on the importance of moving this forward in terms of public lands and so on. Is there any?
I would say it's number one for us right now.
Mhm.
I don't speak for everyone, but it seems like the last,
Pretty
I
high
would
up.
say, half a year.
It comes
it's
up
been-
every time now.
We're getting slammed. And so I think we're ready to give the time and effort to this.
Good. Yeah, I'm available, just juggling, that's all. It's the film that we all are, so, yeah, more interdepartmental collaborations, whatever we're gonna do, the better. And yeah, we've got a good little committee, it's a 5-person committee.
Can you tell us who's on the committee?
Kim, Jeanette Kingsley, myself, Katie Caruth in theory, and I think Rick is the associate member now. So,
And Steve's
Wooden is
Steve's
the,
a- yeah.
the de facto. Monthly, we don't meet often. We mostly do it during the spring. We get the spring planting done, and then we're more or less wrapped up, getting ready for the next go round. And then just we'll have to go back to finance or something. Now that we've got this plan in place, we have to figure out how to work through fiscal years. And this is, everybody, like at the state, we have the same issues, like, okay, well, the tree needs to be watered all summer, all in the fall, but oh, it's July 1st, and just making sure that the money kind of flows through so we can get everything done. But we're, like I said, 3 years in a row now, so that's exciting. We're hopeful that there'll be consistent funding that we can plan on.
Start early and water it. We still have lots of Boy Scouts and different scouts coming in for different projects.
But we do have to pay for the water. It's basically what we found out the last meeting. We can't just send people out to the fire department to load up. Like someone pays for it, It's just, so I was like, I didn't quite get this.
It's an issue.
And it was like, well, the comment, well, that was select board.
Pump in my house.
Exactly. Use a pond, private well.
No, it's 30 gallons per minute, it's more water than I could ever conceive of using.
They are talking about doing irrigation now with the fields with wells. That came up. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be treated water from
And the common.
Just like, oh, let's use the water that's there. We're getting there.
Good.
More eco-friendly.
Can I propose that we should establish some subcommittee to draft something for the Conservation Commission?
I think
This is where we were headed last time.
to do an assessed needs of, we need the glossary, we need to have goals so that we know what is going to be in that language.
I can send you some stuff. I think our first page is done. I forget where we left off. But in general, I can send you some stuff.
And yeah, I started trying to look around in town. I was having a hard time nailing anybody down, but I just coincidentally ran across this one at a meeting. But it's mostly like if a private owner wants to take down a tree in a buffer zone, they have something like this. But at the very least, we can add. This is what again. We have.
There's a number out there, it's just a matter of choosing our pieces and weaving them together.
At the very least, right now, I could add the tree diameter species onto the plan checklist.
You're still with MACC? You can send an email at the end, right?
I did, and I didn't hear back from her, but I can ask them to broadcast.
Tree removal policy.
That's a policy, so that's just adopted internally.
Well, the tree removal application. That's what we need to get to. You applied. You got that tree yet?
Sure, I'll make another form.
Yeah, so that was another thing that sort of came to identify too. It's like all this stuff is great, but there's not the staff to enforce, or if it's gonna just swamp you with a bunch of new.
But at least if we have an applicant, they're captive.
Oh yeah,
Here's another
we're
thing
starting
you
from
have
zero.
to tick off. Here's another
Well,
thing.
and we've got them captive, that sounds very adversarial, but we have them captive
We have their attention.
for a number of years, right? They're looking at getting a certificate of completion down the road, so we can also put requirements on this in terms of our jurisdictional areas, that you have to attain 80% survival, or I don't know, pick your number, right? After a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever, before they can get their COC and get signed off, So in a lot of ways, it's doing at least the trees within 100 feet of wetlands fits right in with our process. It's part of what we do. It doesn't really change our workload in any meaningful way. Maybe it adds one more headache for Amy, but she's already got a lot.
She has an assistant. Well, we certainly appreciate you coming in, though, so it's good.
We'll edit that out.
Yeah. Excellent. Good.
Yeah, it's excellent. I'm glad we're doing this.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Thanks for the invite.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, I got your email just like 10 minutes ago, so sorry about that.
So I was like, there's no way you're getting done at 8:30, whatever you said. I was like, come on.
They have been better though.
Yeah?
They've
They have.
been-
So our last question then is, if we are going to establish a subcommittee to take this up, it could be a 2 or 3 member subcommittee, right?
Anything under 4, yeah,
Right.
4 is a quorum.
So,
I'm not sure about a subcommittee. I remember there was gonna be something on that before, and they said a subcommittee needs to be appointed, and it's a weird thing, but,
Okay, do we call it a task force?
yeah, a
Maybe
working
my
group.
other ones are
or just
some
working
working
task
group,
force.
sure,
Yeah,
yeah.
Because
just start
it's-
kicking stuff around and
It's-
then bringing it.
But nonetheless, it should be a group of 2 or 3.
Yeah,
Right. So I think we would make a proposal to have a working group known as, whatever you would like to call it, tree initiative or tree policy initiative, with the support. So we would make a motion for that. If everyone agrees, then we would then ask who would like to be on that. Would we like to make a formal motion to do that? To create a working group?
I think we should formalize it.
Second.
How many would you like to have on that, 2 or 3? I think 3 is good, because then you can always have 2 that just can keep going.
Has 2 going at all times?
So the motion is heard and seconded. Everyone in favor of that? Aye. Anyone opposed? It's not going to be Brian, he won't be opposed.
I'll just say Brian runs it.
Brian is one of the 3. Okay. So I think we'll let people think about who wants to be on that, and then would ask for commitments at the next meeting. Who would like to throw their name in the arena for that?
Yeah, I'm in.
Sound like a plan?
In the meantime, Tim and I can start trying to dig a little deeper.
Or just trying to pull it all together, and you can just keep copying and pasting to Amy. That would be great.
Yeah, it would be really nice, right? We'll want to like harmonize our definitions and things like that so that we're.
Right, yeah.
We don't have.
We're only using what you're using anyway, so there's no, it's all gonna be harmonious. Okay. Cool. Anybody have anything else? It is 9:36. Motion to close April 4th, 2023 meeting.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Did I get a second on this?
Second.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Chase did. Okay. Thank you.